There we go. My sound was not on. I, for some reason, could never get that right. We got it straightened out there. My sound was not on. Speaker sound. As you can see, I do not know what I'm doing. So that never stops me though. And you know, you don't want to like, at least never worry about making too many mistakes. Nobody's really paying attention anyways. I think I get one viewer and they'll probably get like half a replay. So who cares? But yeah, so it's been an interesting few weeks. I've been dipping my toes into the world of NFTs and non-fungible tokens, which is a way of selling art on the internet, like digital art, in a sort of a like a in a collectibles market. So far, I mean, there's many. It seems like there's many different kinds of markets there, but the collectibles one is like like you're trading um, valuable anything that's valuable, like baseball cards or things like. But it's a little bit more than that. It's sort of a seems like there's like a bit of a social status angle to it on some levels. On some of it's just artists finally being able to bring their artwork to the public in a way they haven't been able to before, especially for artists who may not, you know, may have social anxieties and it's difficult for them to get out in front of people in real life, in the physical world. So I think it overall is creating a lot of interesting opportunities for artists to bring their work to a public that they otherwise had a hard time having access to, and it's created a whole community around that, filled with artists that are helping each other and supporting each other as they grow or expand out into the world. So it's really fun to watch that happen and unfold. And it's a lot different than the world that was available to me when I started out. So like it's in my opinion like one of the greatest times to be an artist ever that I can see since I've been trying my hand at all this stuff. So for some of you who may not know what NFTs are or blockchain technology, it's one of the things that I've been trying to understand myself, and especially in a way that I could kind of explain it. And the best way that I can at the moment is if one of the things you might hear somebody say is like, why would I buy somebody's digital art when I could just go to Google and right click it on an image search? So one of the things that NFTs do is they prove that that's not what you did. Uh, NFTs, in a sense, track the authenticity of the artwork back to the creator or the person who minted it on the blockchain. One of the difficulties if you're getting familiar with this stuff is there's lots of terms that don't make any sense, and like what does people mean by when they say they minted something? Like what is that? Um, what is blockchain? I don't know what the fundamental question is for people who are starting out. But so what I've been doing over the last almost a year now is just kind of studying crypto stuff and technology and trying to understand like is there something going on here, or is it just like a weird side game that is going to crash and people getting scammed and all that? And the conclusion I came to was there's definitely something going on here. There's lots of applications for it that are hard to see right now, just because a lot of the technology is really still in development, And remember, this is what I'm talking about is just the best that I can explain it to. So if I say something wrong or I get it wrong, yeah, sorry. If you can reply in the comments and let me know what's up. But anyway, let me make sure this is, let's swing this. So yeah, so the basics of it, why people are doing it is because it's fun. It's a way to not only sell art but collect art and different things that are cool. People that it's almost like a social media platform, like you might think of Instagram or Facebook, except that people have a stake in the imagery that they're using and the artwork that's on there, and artists are able to get paid for the work that they're doing, and the people are using as their profile pictures and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the things that might be headed towards. So you can take an NFT and use it as your profile picture on Twitter, and they change the profile picture shape to be like a hexagon or something, so that it is identifiable as a NFT that you're using, and then people can click on that and go look at the NFT. They can look at other NFTs that you collect, and like any sort of things that people collect, there's clubs of people that are collectors and they like to share their collections and show it off to their friends and that sort of thing. So that's what I see most of it's going on is just people having fun with collecting and trading art. And the space there is really very new. So a lot of the people that are getting in on it now, I think, are, you know, able to get involved with artists early on in their career and be a part of their trajectory as they advance in their, move along. So there's a few things that are happening. Now there are what are called generative NFTs, which are a basic image that is then has derivatives and things that are added to it, sometimes by a computer program, and it's generated randomly and then minted, and some of those attributes that might be a pair of, like somebody, if you think of it as a bust, like a character's head and shoulders, they might have some with glasses, some with braces, some with all variations, and that some of those combinations are rare amongst the collection that was produced, and the rare ones are the ones people want, and they become valuable on a secondary market, which up until now, I'm coming from the in real life art world, or something like that, is that there isn't really an access to a secondary market. So people who buy the artwork, they don't have a way to like immediately turn around and resell it if they need to or want to for some reason. But the difference here is that there's an immediate access to sell it to somebody else, and so there is a lot of people that are looking this as investment vehicles and ways to hedge against the volatility of the crypto tokens themselves. Ways of buying assets that are hopefully rising in value, that they can raise the value of the faster than the value of the tokens might be going up. So there's the sense of it, it's a fun sort of game to be playing, and it could be lucrative. I think my advice to anybody, if you're seeking advice from me, is if you're going to get involved in buying NFTs, that I would give the same advice I do for like traditional art, which is to buy the artwork that you enjoy and really like, and not worry about if it's going to be worth more tomorrow. That's who I would rather have buying my work. I think is people who really enjoy it. And then there's added benefit that yeah, possibly you could appreciate and value like any other asset. But you know, I think if the artist is focused on creating a valuable asset, then they often will get that will be the thing that they put in front of their like as their priority uh, of their um of their art. Like they're making it to create value for somebody else. And in my own experience, I found that when I've done that, the art that I create isn't that good. It's not that it's not that good, but it doesn't have the same impact or like the quality of the art changes. And I think in my case, the art that I make is the better version of my art is artwork that I think is just going to be cool to make, or I think would be an interesting look, something to look at and be fun and maybe tell a story of some sort, be entertaining. I kind of view my art, for myself as entertainment. So I like my artwork to to be fun to look at and experience. And everything else is sort of secondary as far as like the objectives of it are secondary. Let me stop this now. Mess with the camera here. Ta-da. All right. Yeah. So yes, what was I saying? Yeah, the motivation for making the artwork. Um, when there's money to be made, I think people have a hard time not chasing that buck. And I can understand, especially if you don't have that many bucks. But the thing that I've experienced is that when you don't chase the buck primarily as your primary objective for making the art, you just chase making the most interesting art you can make and keep focused on that, then the artwork actually turns out to be more valuable and it sells better often. So putting the focus on the quality of your work, in the craft, in the idea, all that kind of thing, I think that's where I would recommend putting the focus and not so much in is it going to have utility, which is a common phrase you'll hear in the NFT circles, which they're looking for NFTs that have utility. And I think what they mean is like it becomes useful in other things like augmented reality and virtual reality applications. Like it has a functionality to it. But I've made my career in making artwork with the only utility of hanging on a wall. So I don't think that you have to be concerned with how much value you're creating for investors when you're making your art. And if that's what your concern is, your art's probably going to suffer and in what it could be technically and intellectually what it could be. Like when I was in art school, there was a big divide between the commercial art illustrators and fine art, and it's usually the fine artists and those professors that would really look down on the commercial art illustration as not being real art because you're doing it for someone else or some other application or some other utility. And fine art should have no utility other than hanging on a wall. But I think that's a rather limited way of looking at things. So I am using black and white on my palette this time. For years, I just never have. I've used white, but I decided to play around with it. And so one of the things I did was I created in this painting, this whole entire sky was created with yellow, black, and white. And so all the blue in the sky is just gray. It's not really blue. In fact, some of it is gray mixed with more yellow, and it still looks blue. It's a weird optical illusion. Anyway, what was I doing here? Yes. I wanted to create a gray. Trying to figure something out here. I wanted to do that's too gray. So it's cold. I'm going to warm that up. It's good. All right, so I've been playing with this painting for a while now. Let's see. Uh, yeah, so there's like two separate worlds going on. It seems like there's the world that I've been living um, in real life and making and selling my art the traditional way. Then there's this digital way and that looks like there's two separate worlds and they're completely unaware of each other in a weird way. And I think there's a lot of it's that's changing. I think there's going to be sort of bridge between these two worlds coming pretty shortly as bigger companies get on board, such as all the social media platforms, and they start making NFT ideas more understandable, and people start adopting and using them. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that pretty soon. I mean, we're already seeing that. Um, so there's some concerns. This has been going on for about a year, and I haven't jumped in until recently. One of them being is like when I first really started becoming aware of it. The immediate concern was the energy use, and as I've studied for a year, I found that there are some concerns here, um, but I think they might be selectively overblown in a lot of instances. And where I see the technology headed, at least from what I can understand, is there's a lot of ways to address those concerns with how crypto tokens are minted and how the transactions work through the networks. And there's already a number of blockchain technologies for NFTs that have addressed this and have significantly lower energy use in the transaction side of things. So I feel like the usefulness of the technology is going to outweigh some of the, concerns of the short-term energy use. The other thing to consider is that there's a trade-off in things, and I don't know how to compare these yet, but there's a dematerialization of art when it comes to NFTs, and what I mean by that is like the energy that's used to produce digital art and sell it is significantly different than it is to create traditional art. Like I have to use raw materials like wood and canvas, and then they're shipping these materials, both from the raw materials to the place where I buy it, and then me making the paintings using raw materials that have pigments that have minerals in them that need to be mined, and all this sort of thing. So there is that isn't necessary in the digital art. They don't have all this material use, and plus there's not the cost of shipping and storing. So I think that people tend to forget about that when they're looking at buying and trading digital art versus traditional art. So artists that are making digital art use less raw materials, even if they use more energy. You have to account the energy it takes to produce traditional work too. And not only the energy it takes, but where are the materials coming from, and what impact does that have on the environment? It's like to be honest, I don't think I've really stopped to think about that too much myself, but it's now something that I do think about. I think the short answer is a change is a coming, and it's always that way. There's a transience to anything that happens, and it's going to happen in the digital sense too. So there's a lot of focus on what does it mean for our environment. There's focus on what does it mean for the systems that are in place now, and then what does it even mean for itself. I think like things change, and so I recently one of the platforms that I mint and sell my NFTs on, OpenSea, recently they came out all of a sudden with a new policy that was going to change how many items that you could mint and how many collections you could have before you were, like a limit. And there was a big outcry about that from the artists, and like it was going to fundamentally change the way that they're able to operate, and it was going to ruin everything for them. And it's kind of I found it kind of amusing in a sense, because this is the nature that every venue I've ever been a part of in the physical world is like that. Um, it might be You might stumble onto some really great venue or place, but eventually it always changes. It's like somebody else becomes the owner, the city changes the law, um, something happens and it changes, and it goes from being great to being a hassle to being miserable. So I think one of the things that I'm cautious about going into the NFT space is that there's no guarantee that it's going to stay as lucrative as it might be right now for anybody, let alone everybody. And the thing to be prepared for is change. It's going to happen. I know that some people may not like to hear that, and I'm not trying to like spook anybody or create FUD or anything like that, but I think what I'm saying is just be prepared for things to change and maybe not change in a way you like them as the technology moves along and develops. Uh, yeah, but it was interesting to watch the reactions, and there was enough outcry that OpenSea changed its mind on that policy, and you know, which is good. It means that artists are being listened to; they have a voice. But as the mainstream comes in, you're going to have all kinds of other players come into the scene that have all kinds of other ulterior motives, and they don't give a shit about the community or the culture that's already in place. They're out for themselves. Maybe that's my pessimism talking, but it's nothing to be pessimistic about. I think I approach things as a pragmatist, I guess. But I guess the sort of it is be prepared for change. It's inevitable, and some of it might be good, but some of it might not be. Like I think the changes that are going on now are really good for some, and some people aren't going to like it at all. It's a disruptor for sure, and I almost get the sense that some some industries, some people are just in denial about what that means. People are going to be looking for how they fit into this restructuring of our power dynamics. You know, are we recreating the same thing in a digital world that we already have in the physical world? Or is this an opportunity to like um, change, like a changing of the guard? Is it going to be a new thing that comes out, or is it going to be the same thing with different faces? That's kind of hard to say, from my point of view. So yeah, and it's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's not like knowing that there's going to be change. It doesn't. It's like since I don't like. This is how I'm looking at it. Like, I don't know what that change is going to look like. So there's nothing you can do to really prepare for it either. It's just I I think the idea of being prepared mentally for it, so that when it happens, that you're not like completely bummed or distraught or caught with no other options. Like so, I got a couple of examples where one of them is obviously on the boardwalk when I was selling out there. Started out really good, and then the city was getting pressure from people who lived on the boardwalk, and had property there, and other merchants that were complaining about people vending out there competing for their business, and there's pressure to manage that better, and basically they wanted to get rid of what was going on out there. And granted, some of it was foolishness. There's lots of noise in the morning and people fighting over space, and so there were some legitimate concerns, but some of it was just you know self-interest. I want it quiet in the morning because I've got enough money to have a house on the beach. And some of it was like people worried about their economic interests. So the city was constantly trying to figure out what the meaning of art was. Like what could you have out there to sell? and I could see what was happening. They were looking for every excuse to um, change what was going on out there. And so after 9/11 happened and the Patriot Act came into being, they did have some changes in what they were allowed to do, because the boardwalk was set up as a First Amendment uh, way to express yourself. You could go out there with your art and put it in the out to the public, so they could you could basically bring your message to the people. And so under the First Amendment, we all have the right to do that. And so the city was constantly getting sued by artists whose rights were violated, and the city was constantly losing those lawsuits. And then there was constant pressure to change the laws. So I don't know, it was like a weird thing going on there. So, but I could see what was happening is like there was no guarantee that it was going to stay that way. And what I didn't want was to have that be my only venue. And then the rules changed and I had nowhere to go, and I was effectively put out of business selling my art. That was my only thing I could afford to do. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get out of that boardwalk and finding other places to sell my art. Eventually, they did change the law. They created a lottery system that you had to join, part of the Parks and Recs department. And unless you were part of that lottery, you couldn't be out there with your artwork, because they had created a system where you had to everybody could get a space, but you had to join a program and then register and then be at the lottery poll to get it. What they did is they made it very difficult to participate, and to the point where it was nearly impossible unless you lived right at the beach and could go out there on a Tuesday morning to be part of this lottery poll. And the first time that they did this, I didn't get a space, and so I didn't have a venue. And they divided the boardwalk up into small spaces, so that instead of having about 300 artists out there, then they went from that to about 150 places to marked off places. So I decided I was going to just go out there anyways and see what they did. If I got tickets, I was like, well, if they give me a ticket, that's what I need so I can fight it. And I went through that for a while. I was setting up in places that weren't designated in the lottery system. What I found out is the city did not want to enforce this because they didn't want to get sued. So they didn't do anything when I broke all their rules, and I set up in between spaces, and I set up in front of bike racks and all kinds of other stuff. And the way their system worked is they gave you citations, which I quickly racked up 3 or 4 of them so that they could issue me a ticket. And then they did that, and then I got a call from the city, and they begged me to like just play by the rules, and they were going to dismiss it, and I told them I wouldn't do it. And then once a few artists saw that I was just doing what I wanted to and getting away with it, other people joined in on it. But this is kind of rambling on. But the problem, the thing I saw is like I didn't want, like I want to make my art and get it out. I want to sell it. I'm not there to like make a First Amendment issue and fight the city. Like that wasn't the path I wanted to take. So I focused on just finding other places, and that's kind of served me well. So the way I think about it is like you exchange one rung on a ladder for a higher rung on a ladder. And what I mean is like you have a venue that you can sell your work at, and it's like the boardwalk. Well, the next rung up would be a festival that has a lot more it's more of a party atmosphere, and you just make better money financially. And so then I'll focus on those, and then slowly replacing those with more prestigious shows that draw better clientele and better, it's just better financially and better, so you can generate more income, so you don't have to be traveling and selling all the time, which gives you more time to work on your art. So what you're really trying to do is negotiate more time to produce your work by making it more efficient in how you sell it, which is another thing I think is going on with the NFTs. It's making it more accessible for more artists to get their collections in front of people and possibly sell some of it. And it's making it more lucrative so that they can focus on their art more. Sorry, I'm losing track of what I'm doing here. Yeah, so there's this whole, like, there's two separate worlds going on. It's really strange. I know I mentioned that earlier, but it's like I go back to the traditional social media now and I look at what's going on and I'm like, and I see the artists there and I'm like, I don't understand how all artists don't see this yet. But then I do because I didn't see it until I kind of started really looking for it, looking to see what it was. It's totally new and unknown to people, so there's a tendency to maybe be skeptical or uncertain about it. And who knows, it might crumble apart and fall apart, but like worth it. You know, I think if you're an artist, you tend to have a high tolerance for risk. I mean, just being by nature of um, trying to make something happen financially out of it, anyways. Like it isn't something that people have. It isn't traditionally art isn't. Selling it as fine art isn't a big utility. So what it does for people is it connects with them on some other level. So it's not about how you can use it. It's about like it's about uh, connecting with people on some level. So there was, like, and nobody goes alone either. So like I've been looking into this, but I started out on the wrong foot, even though I had some good advice. I had a good friend of mine named Josh Breckenridge who was giving me advice. He's got I guess he's kind of like the tech consultant and behind some of the, like helping me to understand some things. And I and the advice I've gotten from him has been really valuable. And I think if you're like somebody who isn't tech savvy about things, uh, you're gonna. One of the things I found that makes anything successful is surrounding yourself with good people, um, and people that you know that know what they're talking about. Everybody's got an opinion, but you want to have people that are knowledgeable. And I think that one of the things that I'm learning through this process too is how to um, listen better to what people are saying, not think I know everything, which I think when you've been doing something for a long time, you maybe fall into that trap. So trying to have a beginner's mind about things is something that I am aware of. I'm not always that great at it, but I have to realize I don't know what the hell I'm doing in almost anything. So being willing to listen to other people and let them help you. And you know, there's so much opportunity to learn. Like I feel like I'm learning everything from like from the ground up again in a weird way. Like I have all this work, this body of work, like spans back to 1997. Like most of it is just from the last 10 years that I've focused on, with my website and social media and stuff like that. But I feel like none of that really matters. Like all the stuff that I'm putting out there in front of people right now is like completely new to them. Like, and they don't know who I am, and whatever I think I was or reputation I had has to be reestablished and rebuilt in front of a whole new generation and a whole new audience. And so that's the way I have been approaching this is taking the attitude of I don't know shit, and I have a lot to learn from everybody that's already here. And there is some things in my experience that helps me to pick up on things quicker than I would have if I didn't have it. But it by no means guarantees anything. And it doesn't matter really who you think you are. Like I, so I think keeping beginner's mind helps you to one, it keeps your ego from believing its own good press, so to speak. And it allows you to learn a lot more. And by learning more, you actually gain and improve your skill sets, your understanding. Because if you go into it with an attitude of not understanding and knowing you don't know, then you're seeking to understand, and that's where you, I think, find discovery and growth. And it keeps you young and keep you from being bitter. Like one of the things I'm having to overcome is just my experience. It's like coming from the real life gallery scene and art world. It's even not just the gallery scene, but even just when I was selling it all myself. There is a sort of ruthlessness to some of it sometimes. And so I'm used to operating in that scene. And so coming into a scene, into the NFT space where um, a lot of it is filled by artists and they're all seeking to help each other and cooperate is, you know, not what I'm used to anymore. So it's taken some getting used to. Um, but it isn't dissimilar to like when I was selling the artwork in Venice and then I was doing festivals. The artists that I sold alongside became community too. It's just that we didn't have 24-hour access to each other. We saw each other either on the weekends when we were out there selling the work, you know, or down the road at every festival you'd run into them, and you cooperate, you swap information, but now you just have so much connectivity that it's almost mind-boggling. It makes things move like super super fast. Like it feels like I've gone through 10 years of experience in a month. like completely, it's like it changes your whole entire mindset because there's this whole other thing going on. Then you realize that so many people are even paying attention to it yet, and that seems weird. I'm working on this painting for a while. Someday it's going to start coming together. One of the things this is all kind of put me in a frame of mind is like I can actually um, I think slow down a bit and really focus on taking my time with paintings and that more than I had been recently. Like I want to not be rushed. I think there's a tendency to want to rush out and get into things and make things happen really quick. Um, but I think I've started to finally realize that less is more, even in the sense of how much you're producing. Like I would rather make a few paintings that were like super, super like I don't know. It feels like I'm talking about my artwork as if I don't put all my effort into it in the past, but it's not what I mean. I can put in a whole other level of things, and I think I've kind of not been as patient with my work as I could be, and maybe there's a sense that that's part of the charm of the work is that there's some sort of immediacy to it. There's things that you do without putting so much thought into it that you couldn't do otherwise. But this allows me to take more time if I want to and focus on something and like figure something out. Like I'm working with a different palette all the time. Allows me to discover more in a painting, I think. I don't know. So far, I feel like this painting is kind of all over the place. It's like it's not quite unified in some way. I'm not sure what to do about that. But I will discover it. Yeah, the painting part of it is the fun part. It's like getting making a living by playing in a playground, kind of. And the more time I can make for myself to be here, the better. It's I guess that's mostly what I'm after now is time. Like you chase the money all the time, and you're gonna be spending a lot of your time doing that. So like maybe the money isn't the most important thing. What I see like in the NFT space is just this whole other way of distributing my artwork to people and getting it in front of people. Like and participate, being a part of the bigger world in the way that I could contribute, which is by making fun paintings to look at, and then meeting cool artists and coming up. It's like there's so much possibility of just like almost like a renaissance of art, where all these artists have this ability to work together and to be in instant communication and to build things that it's almost like they're building the new internet. Like there's a whole new world being built, and it's being built by all the artists who are getting together and doing it because they want to, and because they're doing it the way they want to do it, and they're getting rewarded for it. I, so when everybody shows up, there'll be cool stuff to do. Like that's some, you know, like artists and engineers are building the future. Whatever, until we get hit by an asteroid, then we're all screwed. So I guess that's the goal: is don't get hit by an asteroid. It'd be ironic. Just when things start picking up for the artist, the world comes to an end. It'd be perfect. I'm about to call stop for today for the live stream. Thank you to everybody that joined to hang out, be a part of this, whatever it is. I want to continue to do these. I think I will. I'll make some concerted effort to keep them going on Fridays again. I may not be able to do it for a while. I'm having surgery on my hand. So I don't know if you can see my pinky right here, but I can't straighten it out. So I'm having surgery on it to address that issue. I got cysts on a tendon. So I'm going to be out for a couple of weeks, anyways. A few weeks. I don't know how long it's going to keep me off, from the painting. Like I don't really need my pinky to do that. It's mostly an inconvenience. So I don't like how warm that is. So I'm just let's see. All right, guys. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off for today. Thanks for watching.